Kelsey. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats. I am back from traveling, as you may have noticed. I kind of thought I'd be able to manage a second video at some point during the week or so while I was away. It didn't happen. Oh well. I'm back. I know I'm a little behind on some routine wrap-ups and reviews and things. They will happen. I'm not stressing about it. But what I'm bringing you today is a Top 5 Wednesday video. Top 5 Wednesday is a Goodreads group originally created by Lainey from Ginger Reads Lainey, currently moderated by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. I'll leave a link to the group below if you'd like to check it out and learn more and possibly join in the fun. Every Wednesday there's a new topic, and today's topic for February 22nd is Top 5 Books to Get You Out of a Reading Slump. I kind of like taking every Top 5 Wednesday topic I do and deciding what my own spin on it is. Some of these books for me are going to be books that personally got me out of reading slumps. Some of them are representative of go-to genres that tend to get me out of reading slumps. And one at the end is one that I think worked when I recommended it to someone to get them out of their specific reading slump. So I'm covering a little bit of a wide range of how you can get out of a reading slump. My first recommendation is pretty straightforward, and that is Discworld books by Terry Pratchett. The one I'm holding up is Wyrd Sisters. But there is a bit of a backstory that goes with this for me. I've mentioned on my channel before that towards the end of high school, when I was starting to look ahead towards college, and then throughout most of college, I was really so focused on other things in my life that I wasn't reading at all. And given that that was also bridging the sort of gap of when people switch from reading YA to adult, a lot of the time in college, if I wanted to read, I had no idea what I would read. What I did read was Terry Pratchett. I had read the Tiffany Aching books, his books for younger readers, when I was in middle school and high school-ish, and one of my best high school friends was and still is a die-hard Pratchett fan. So these were some books that I managed to start reading like over the summers when I was in college, and I found them just so compulsively readable. It's comedic fantasy. It was just something I could dive into and feel both sort of intellectually stimulated, because Terry Pratchett is wild smart, but also have a really good laugh at, and that was something I think I really needed. Reading these, I think, primarily over the summers and breaks during college. I made it through Wyrd Sisters, Witches Abroad, Lords and Ladies, and Masquerade. This is chronologically, I was going through the Witches novels because they tie in with the Tiffany Aching books, and I made it through 4 of the 5 main ones. I think I also read Equal Rights, although I don't own a copy of that. Because I personally started reading adult Discworld with Wyrd Sisters, I would recommend it as a good starting place. There are plenty of other good starting places in the Discworld series, but this is my personal recommendation because it worked for me. My next book has a personal story that kind of piggybacks onto that one. When I graduated from college, I still had no idea what I really wanted to read. And I think what really got me hooked on reading again after feeling in college like I really should only read grown-up books was just letting myself read a bit of YA. And that was when I read Cinder by Marissa Meyer. It was the first YA book that I read after, you know, going off to college. And it was just so much fun, and I got so hooked on this series the summer after I graduated college. And at that point I hadn't yet discovered BookTube and sort of the book internet community, and I was sort of embarrassed to be a grown-up reading YA. I think those of us who've been hanging around on the book internet know that it's nothing to be ashamed of to read YA if you're older than a teenager. So this was the series that helped me get back into YA, and ironically, sort of once I was back in, you know, reading YA and paying attention to what was there in the book world, the adult books that I wanted to read followed pretty naturally. And then another go-to genre that I would recommend for getting out of a reading slump is middle grade. Go even younger, it's no problem, read whatever you want, and middle grade is really good for getting out of a reading slump for me. My go-to middle grade recommendation, even though it's not a book that personally got me out of a reading slump, I wasn't in a reading slump when I read it, is The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Catherynne and Valente. This is sort of like my, if you have any interest in middle grade and you haven't read this, what are you doing? Go read this recommendation. And I also want to point out that so far these first 3 books on my list are books in a series. So that's a sort of generalized recommendation from me, is if you're in a reading slump, pick up a series. If you like the first one, you have a ton more that you can binge. My 4th book on this list, I have a book for it, but it's more a sort of generalized suggestion for how to get out of a reading slump that you can tailor to your own personal reading preferences. And I'm going to suggest that if you really want to get out of a reading slump, try something you have never read by one of your favorite authors. After Terry Pratchett got me through college and Marissa Meyer got me back into the reading world was when I started going to my library and picking up everything and anything that I had never read by McKinley. I had read a bunch of her books when I was younger, and she had some more recently published books out that I had never read, and she also had some older books that I had just never gotten my hands on. The book that I started with this is Pegasus. This is not specifically a book that I would recommend in general to get people out of reading slumps for a lot of different reasons, but this is going to be the book that is representative of this technique that I am going to recommend to you. I picked this book up from the library in the year after I graduated college, and I eventually bought myself a copy, and I just had a lot of fun rediscovering things that I had never read before from an author whose work I had a lot of nostalgia attached to. So from here I went on to read Spindle's End, Rose Daughter, Shadows, Dragonhaven, and I forget what all else. Sunshine, obviously I read Sunshine because I'd never read Sunshine before. So there was a bunch of her work I hadn't read, and I read it all, and I started with this one. If you can identify an author you've really liked in the past who has other work out that you haven't read, that's, I think, a really good path to go for getting out of a reading slump. The last book I have on this list, number 5, is a book that I did not personally read when I was in a reading slump. I didn't use it to get out of a reading slump, but I do think it's a good recommendation, and I did give this book to someone for Christmas to get them out of a genre-specific reading slump, and I think it worked. My aunt has been complaining for years that she cannot find newly published sci-fi that appeals to her, which is problematic because sci-fi is her favorite genre. And so I gave her The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky, which is a compassionate and character-driven sci-fi book, which are qualities that really appeal to both her and me, and I think a lot of other people, which is why I think this is a really good general recommendation for getting out of a reading slump. This is a book that is warm and compassionate and fun while still dealing with some big ideas and not being reductive about any of them. There's a reason this is so broadly liked on BookTube, and I think it would be a really great book for getting out of any sort of reading slump, but if you feel worn out by sci-fi that is all space operas and military stories, then maybe you can try The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet as well. So this was my list of recommendations, plus the one that I don't have a physical copy of. If you have stories about books or reading techniques that have gotten you out of a reading slump, feel free to share them, or, you know, anything else about any of these books or other books, whatever. Anyhow, I hope you're having a nice day. Bye for now.